Welcome to The Sage and The Skeptic, a podcast for those ready to go beyond ego, pride, attachments, and their versions. And here we dive into transformative conversations that challenge the patterns of the past, freeing you to shape a future on your terms. I'm your host, Andrew Keating, The Skeptic, asking the tough questions but keeping it grounded. And joining me as always is the wise and insightful Manna Abraham, our sage, guiding us with her profound perspective. Together, we explore what it truly means to look beyond ourselves. I'm getting fed up, especially as we record this. It's coming up to a new year, New Year's resolution, and things like that. I'm tired. And what I'm really curious about, what you do is different. I know how you operate is different when it comes to this. What would your process be into starting setting something to achieve something or to do something or just to be something for the coming year?
I think it is ironic that we even talk about New Year because somehow we are also driven by this concept of time and New Year and November, December, January. Why to talk about things that you cannot stick to? Why to do something that you cannot be consistent about? So, wherever you are, whenever you think you need a change, that's the time when you have to reflect and revisit who you are at that point of time and start. So you don't even have to wait for 1st of January to get started with something, number one. The second is your goals don't begin on a particular date. Goals begin when you take decisions. So if you're taking a decision today based on what you want today, then your new year is today and it starts tomorrow. I think that's a better start than looking at time as a factor that can stop you or start you.
But isn't it important to, revisit what you've accomplished in the year or not accomplished and reevaluate where you need to be? And isn't the new year a good time to decide that, yeah, I'm going to start something new, I'm going to do something?
Yeah, I think again, so many people do the same thing, so many people, and I don't think we are doing anything different right now. That we're again following, joining the bandwagon of again new year, end of year, same conversation. But can we really talk, keeping this new year idea away, and can we really talk about like what should change in your life today? Why are you feeling stuck? Because your feelings of feeling stuck or your feelings of getting bored, they do not wait till December. They can happen mid of the year or mid of the month or in the midnight. It can happen. So can we start this conversation without thinking about end of the year or new year?
Mm.
And can we again relook at it?
So what would that look like?
So forget this is November, forget this is December, and just look at it from where are you? And since how long have you been feeling stuck, or have you been feeling that you had to change this job, or change this relationship, or change or move from this home? So, whatever, when did that start really? And since how long have you been postponing? Because your shift has started way before that, since way before that feeling. Because any shift or any change begins even before you perceive that feeling that something should change. So it's the time, the first lag is the time you take to understand that something should change. And then the second lag is from the moment you realize that you should change to the date or time you take a decision. And the third lag is from the decision to actually take the first step. So these are the three lags. So wherever you are today, I would really ask you, like, since when this shift has started? Because it is hard when somebody is in the idea of revisiting on a specific date. It is very hard to really realize when did the change has happened. When did your identity really change? Or when did you really start disliking or liking things that you didn't like or dislike before? When did that change?
So I guess what you're saying is that when you get to the point of change, the decision's been made way before that.
Yeah.
So I once remember hearing you saying about the pushes that you get, the different pushes that you get. And could you just explain that a little bit for us?
Yeah, so I think we all are constantly evolving. Not I think, I know. We all are constantly evolving and changing at our own speeds. And as we are constantly changing and evolving, it's almost like you're on a highway driving at around 100 kilometers per hour. And then, even if you see the exit road, but if you forgot or to change the lanes, or if you're not mindful, then you miss that exit. So you have to keep driving till you get your next exit point. So probably the change has happened way past then, and that exit point, because you were not mindful, or because you're not aware, or because you're drawn to these attachments that you somehow have to keep this together, hold this together, or your own different ideas and identities, you missed your exit point when that shift has happened. So now you're on this motorway and you have to keep driving at 100 kilometers per hour. You cannot, so you have to patiently wait for the next exit point. But meanwhile, at least be mindful that when the next opportunity comes, I will make that turn.
What should the first signs of somebody looking for, knowing that there's a change coming, or how they're shifting identities?
Yeah. So I think this is a very old saying of variety is the spice of life, and variety is indeed the spice of life. So at any point of time, if you're getting bored doing what you're doing, or you're getting bored to be with your partner, or you're getting bored driving the same car, or if you're getting bored, your mind is already saying and telling you you're ready for something and it's time for you to move on. But again, is that a sign? Not necessarily, because some people can stay with the same car for 20 years, and some people they would like to change every 3 or 4 years, and businessmen probably they would like to change every financial year for various business reasons. So it depends on what situation you are in. And when this change is happening, first things to note are you looking out for something? Say a person who is happy in a workplace, they would never look for a job outside. They would never even think that thought even occur to their minds. But at some point, at some level, when the mind has shifted, naturally the news starts reaching out to you that there are some opportunities there or some casual conversations coming up, and you feel drawn to it. Those are the signs that something is changing. We don't really give importance to that because we are lost in our own worlds. So when your mind is drawn to look for something else beyond, like say, when you're in one job and your mind is thinking, no, I'm done with it, there's much more to me. When you're in a relationship and if you're feeling my needs are not being met, or when you're doing your business and you know instinctively you have shifted, but that business is not aligning to you anymore. Or when a particular title or a particular adventure has lost its purpose, you do not want to go there anymore. But you may be pushing yourself to go and be part of that adventure. So just to keep those friends, so you're clinging, or you're still serving in a job or in a business which lost its purpose because it is still providing food and it is still meeting your bills. So when you're working based on some compulsion, or when you are staying in relationships, good or bad, when you're staying in those relationships because of compulsion to some degree, then you know it's time to reevaluate and reassess where you are and who you are. Because the initial stages of these changes is where they can be solved with communication. You can go to your employer, for example, and say, right, I think I've outgrown this job. I need a change because this is starting to get boring for me. There is an opportunity for a positive communication, a two-way communication. But when you are stressed and when you're vexed up and you have the fear of asking or telling what it is for the fear of losing job, then you naturally create a negative environment where either you're redundant or you have to quit by force. Same thing in relationships. When you know your needs are not being met and when you're in a positive frame of mind, right at the start, if you have these open and honest communication channels, there is a pathway and there is a dialogue that is possible. But the moment you take your mind to stress and your body to stress, then the negativity creeps in and you close or you block the channels of communication where exit seem to be the only strategy. Same thing with your business because everything is energy and it works with you. So if you think your business is stagnated, that's the point where you have to stop and think, right, how have I changed? Who am I today? What do I want? So I think these points at each stage, it is important to have those open conversations with yourself, with your boss, or with your employer, or with your employee, or with your partner, or with your parent, or your child, because those are the times when conversations are possible. But at that point, if you realize that conversations are not possible, that is your real push for you to do something about it, to revisit yourself or to reassess your identities or values.
I think that all sounds easy in when you say it as in a process like that, but often it isn't it? Often we're stuck somewhere that we may not want to be, whether it's relationship, whether it's community, whether it's work or anything. We're kind of stuck there because of we have other things over our heads. We have financial commitments, we have parental commitments, we have relationship commitments. So how do you find that balance to know that I don't want this anymore, or I'm open for this to change in some way?
Yeah. So I take that to the likes of swimming. Yes, so you can put your head under the water, but you do know after the count of 6 or 7, you have to lift your head up to breathe in. And then you go up and you hold your breath. But somehow we forget that in life, that we need to look up to get that air in, and then we look down to go forward. So the stuck state is forgetting that you're not capable of living without breathing in. So the same way that breaks that you have to take, the breaks you have to consciously take, because if you consciously don't take the breaks, then that will break you to stop. So, which is a physical fatigue or sudden surprises in relationship breakdowns, because you're not taking notice of the changes that are happening around you. So, it's easy to say you're stuck, but the very reason you're stuck is because you're already operating in a disempowered state. Because observing or identifying you're stuck itself is a good awareness. Then the journey starts. But many people, they don't even realize they are stuck. They just get frustrated, bored, and they struggle to communicate and they snap. So that is because they're not even aware of it. So what is important is to be proactive and operate on a daily basis in an empowered state. So empowered state is not a reaction when you are stuck and you don't know what to do. Empowered state is a 24/7 practice that you keep doing and you keep working on yourself. So should such a situation happen, you're in a better frame of mind to work with it and deal with it. So people get stuck and they don't realize that means, they didn't do that work. And if they think they're doing the work, they didn't do it the right way.
Hmm. So how would somebody start on that path to you said it's a 24/7 practice. What things should people be doing to be aware of these things when they do come up?
Yeah, so as long as you are not aware of it, it won't even come up to the surface because you don't know what you don't know. And if you're not aware of it, you can't even recognize it. So the first thing that is important for you is to simply ask yourself, am I living my life on a daily basis from an empowered state or a disempowered state? Am I always at the beck and call of somebody's moods and emotions? Or am I comfortable with my own moods and emotions, and am I able to operate? So if you can answer 100% yes to this question, that yes, I'm operating on my own terms and I am in an empowered state or most of the time, that's a good starting point. And then the next thing is, it doesn't matter wherever you are, just start today and take the time to start assessing your identities, your values, who you were, what you were, and just make a beginning. Just start today, now.
Again, it sounds easier said than done.
As a society, we do not like a couple of things, which are silence. We don't like silence because it is somehow ingrained in us that silence is bad. The second is somehow sitting and doing nothing is bad. So to start, just do these two things, which totally can be confronting to you. Just start embracing silence, silence within. And two, start at least 10 minutes of doing nothing. So why can't we be real? But in order to be real, you have to be in an empowered state. And in order to be an empowered state, you need certain discipline. That is the third word that people don't like. Discipline. It sounds somehow very much like rules and authoritarian, but the self-discipline. So self-discipline, silence, and sometimes set aside doing nothing. If you can just follow these three things in your day, in any way, form, just maybe 5 minutes, 5 minutes, and 5 minutes every day, 5 minutes of sitting still, doing nothing in silence. Can you do that? Can you use your nose to breathe? Can you just simply do those things? So, as you do that, you bring that stability because people think if you're meditating, you're suddenly becoming some spiritual guru. No, life brings always some situations and circumstances. So, this practice that you're building day in and day out that will help you to face those things that come up unexpectedly as you are living your life.
So what does that look like and how is it going to help?
99% of the population, they live their life as a distraction and not by choice. So their busyness is a distraction. Them walking in the nature is a distraction. Enjoying the beauty of green leaves and colorful flowers is a distraction. So, the reason why it is important to at least spend that time in stillness without giving your senses any such stimulus is to for you to face yourself and see what is it that your mind is capable of bringing when you're not distracting yourself so much. So even when I ask people to sit still, it's a very common thing here. I meditate in nature, or I meditate better with walking or in the waterfalls. But the truth is, if that waterfall or that nature is a distraction, who are you when there is no distraction? And in the bigger scheme of things, what is really important is the courage to face yourself. And that's the one place we all avoid facing. So we become helpers, we help others, we support others, we fill our life with things and things to do, places to go. But one place that we don't go is our inner world. So that silence or that stillness, what I'm talking about, and the discipline is for you to go into your inner world without any external stimulus, without any distraction. Can you? That is the beginning of that stillness. And that is the beginning because if you are still and you are peaceful, you can give that peace to others. If you are rushing within, when you're in your busyness, you only create a rush energy wherever you go.
And what will I start to notice or about myself in this stillness?
It's the clarity. It's the clarity that you see. It's the clarity that you get. Because every person, every word that they utter is their world. But if you're too busy interpreting their world, you forget your world. You forget what you want. You forget who you are. So you do not have any reference point of where you are standing. So the moment you know in your silence who you are, then you'll be able to see clearly it is what it is. So the moment you can see the clarity in it, I can see some of my students, they say, it is funny. It is funny to see how people react to situations because once you start seeing with clarity and once you find this inner strength within you, then naturally your expectations from others drops. And when they drop, you are much more stable and empowered in your own space. So that peace, that empowerment will help you to move forward.
So let's say now I sit in silence and I really find out what it is that I look for and what it is that I want. Then what are the things then, the next things that I should do once I understand that to try and make this a reality in my life?
So I think once you can at least think of it, the next step is for you to go through that inquiry of who are you today? What is my identity? How have I changed? What I thought I wanted, is it really something I want today? What I thought who I was maybe a year ago or even 6 months ago, am I that person today? Am I really that person? Do I want it? But unfortunately, we do not like to think change is the only constant. So we unnecessarily hold to the value of consistency and longevity. And unfortunately or fortunately, you yourself are never consistent and constant. You're always changing. but we fail to recognize that. And we tend to think I am the same person who I was a few months ago, a few years ago. And some people for 50, 60 years, they don't change they don't think they have changed, their identities have changed. So they don't even sit or stop to analyze, and they follow the same template and patterns. So the next immediate step for you, once you can at least embrace the idea of silence and stillness and discipline and not doing anything in that awareness, the next step is to take the help to reassess yourself, reassess your identities, reassess what is important to you and what is not important to you. And naturally, that will give you more clarity and it will help you to declutter, and then you can move forward.
So you said declutter. Declutter what?
Declutter your thoughts, declutter things, declutter the so many obligations, because some people, though they really don't need to be busy, they make themselves busy. They keep themselves busy with the appointments or friends or doing things which are not required. So somehow it sounds very tacky when I say result oriented living, so I call that intentional living. We fail to live with an intention, so we tend to grab onto everything that is there, forgetting really who I am, what do I want. So if you can focus on that, then you can live with intention and then you can move forward.
So you mentioned result-oriented living and intentional living. So how would that be different to having a goal?
So goal is where, say, maybe 20 years ago, all I wanted was to be a successful woman or a successful professional. So that identity must have taken a value that I should be an efficient person in everything I do. And today, though I don't have to force myself to be efficient because you naturally develop a skill, you are unnecessarily pushing yourself to be that efficient person while you must have already been that. That must be already your skill naturally. But that old identity of a successful professional is pushing you for efficiency. And in the process, you forget to see who are you. Perhaps I am not even a successful chartered accountant today because I changed my careers. I'm someone else. But are the values of that identity, are they still driving me today? So that's the analysis. That's the result oriented conversation. So there's no point in me keeping some stationery papers and printer ready when I don't even print anything. But the idea that a professional should have a printer in their office room can keep me hanging onto that printer. So when you assess your identity, that's the first point of declutter. I don't need that printer. And then I become practical. Maybe I go to a nearby office works or a stationery when I need. Maybe I may be only printing 5 papers in a year. For that, I don't need to clutter my office space with the printer, which is the value of an identity which is 20 years old. So that's how you start decluttering the identity, the values, and things around you.
Hmm, that's a good analogy. I like that. So
Mm.
let's say then that I've discovered who I am, I've discovered where I want to be now and what I want to move towards. Going through any kind of process to do that and through the silence. What's the next steps then? How can I set myself to be driven by something when in reality I may not feel like I want to be driven towards something?
Hmm. Yeah, so the language you used, driven, because somehow driven is your identity, or perhaps being driven is your value, because at some point you're no longer driven. Whatever attracts you is your drive. Whatever you naturally do is your drive. So instead of waiting or waiting for that opportunity to find what drives you, perhaps it's important to observe what attracts me today. What do I do naturally? And with that, can you make something? So I think that's the paradox. So at some point, you have to give a purpose, like as simple as riding a bike or a motorbike. That's a purpose. But after that, it's no longer a purpose, it's what you do. You don't search for that anymore, so there's something else, right? So you may be going to places, and that just motorbike, which was such a purpose at one point, is just a tool and no longer a purpose. And there are people in big cities, if you ever lived, then people who want these big cars as their purpose, suddenly they start going on bicycles. That becomes their purpose because they want to be environment friendly. So your purpose is only the tool that will take you to a point. And once that tool served its purpose, the tool becomes irrelevant. The knowledge remains.
Mm.
So perhaps you're not so driven. It's what you need to get you there. One of my clients, she believed if she climbs this mountain, and that's when she'll be done with the trauma. So climbing that mountain and achieving that was her purpose and was her drive. So is it climbing the mountain that was her drive, or is to be free from the trauma that was her drive? Whatever it was, she climbed. She stopped at the peak of this mountain. She took all the wonders of that being at the top peak of the mountain. She came back and she's still the same person. So the drive is what you think will take you to a point and give you a certain result. So that's where the intentional living. So is your intention to be free from the trauma and work and live and experience that freedom? Is that the intentional living? Or simply driven by an identity of an adventurer, and you want to connect your identity as a solution to what you want and living? So you did another wasteful climb if the intention was to be free from it. But the act itself is not wasteful, but with the intention, what you chose to do, that is a no result driven act.
Mm. So is what you're saying that we're not often aligned fully to our goal because the intention behind it is different, or it's attached to a wrong identity?
Yeah, yeah. So definitely that's the thing. So it is attached to a wrong identity, and you forget, what do I really want now? What do I want today? And you get carried away. And you get carried away, you think you're powerless, you think you don't have any control because you're getting carried away. But if you can, at least you should know what you want, so you can stand your ground, not to be carried away. But when you don't know, you're just like that leaf in the wind. You're just getting blown in all directions. But if you're totally egoless, I'm happy to be that leaf blowing in whatever direction the wind blows. But we as human beings, we have certain dreams and wishes, and I want certain thing. So when you have that, it is important to have an intention and put all your efforts towards that intention than scattering your energy and your willpower.
Well, I think that's given me a lot to think about, and appreciate your time. Thank you, Manna.
Thank you.